You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 150, When People in Your Life Are Anti-Fat and Pro-Diet. I'm Vinnie Wellesby, your host. Let's do it!
Perfect.
Hey, how are ya? I realise I almost never introduce myself. I'm Vinnie. My pronouns are they, them. I am a smelly British-Irish person living in Canada, in Vancouver, which is the traditional, ancestral and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam nations. Welcome to the show if you're new here, and if you're not new here, welcome back. So good to see you. How you doing? What's going on? This week Spotify released its, the Wrapped thing, and if you are a podcaster, they will give you your podcast stats. I can see my stats anyway on a different program which releases it to all the platforms, but then Spotify put it in pretty graphics. You're like, oh, it means more because it's in pretty graphics. But I just wanted to shout out the top 10 countries that people listen to the show from. So top 10, we've got United States. Yes, United Kingdom. Thank you. Canada. Yeah. Australia, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, New Zealand, Finland, and Norway. I just find it so interesting. I'm like, who is listening in Sweden or the Netherlands or Norway or Finland? Like, how do they know about me? How do you know about me? Like, US, UK, and Canada, I feel like, that's my general region, right? And then other folks, I'm like, how did you find me? Hey. And Fierce Fatty Podcast is in the top 10% shared globally, and in the top 2% global rank for popular podcasts. I'm in the top 2%. It's amazing. Wow. And I also checked out recent reviews, and I wanted to read out a few. One of them is a 1-star review. Okay, so 5 stars, informative. This is a review of the show. If you want informative, well-researched information on how to be a fat ally or on how to set boundaries as a fat person, Vinnie is a perfect choice. They are entertaining, empathetic, and sensitive, funny, and they do their homework. I also love the regularity of new episodes. Thank you very much. And that is from someone in Ireland. Oh, Ireland is not in the top 10. Come on, Ireland. Come on. 5 stars. Fat positive podcast at its best. Empathetic, knowledgeable, hilarious. You get all this and more when you listen to Vinnie Wellesby. I am in love. Oh, and that's from Germany. Ooh. 5 stars. This pod is awesome in capital letters. Vinnie's podcast is a must for anyone who needs some fatty love, and also for tons of well-researched education around fatness and all the issues that intersect with it. Their style is so fun, but also sensitive and compassionate. Listen with 4 exclamation points, and that's from Great Britain. Thank you so much. Honestly, it makes me feel so good reading those. And you know what makes me feel really, really good is the empathetic and compassionate stuff. I'm like, oh yes, I really appreciate that. And then like the ego in me, when you say that I'm funny, I'm like, yes, yeah. Not everyone agrees though. 1 star. Tried really hard, they say. Tried really hard to enjoy this and learn, but just completely misses the mark on a lot of things, including contradictions within the same episode to support the point of the moment. Also, all of the constant singing and shouting makes it hard to listen with headphones, be warned. And that was from Great Britain. Boo. Boo and hiss. And you know what? That review, I was like, I had a moment of, oh, I'm too loud. I sing too much. And you know what? With the singing thing, I don't know if I probably have mentioned this before. So I go to choir, but also I started going to like singing groups because I was so... all my life, I felt like I had to be quiet because growing up, my dad couldn't tolerate any type of noise in the house. And so things like singing prohibited, obviously, and I was always very, very shy, which people are very surprised at, but I was really, really shy. And so even if I wanted to sing, there was no way I was going to, and I did want to sing, but so using my voice and singing and being loud is a very hard won battle for me. And I'm not always loud, sometimes I might laugh and shout or whatever, but I think that's just a normal human thing, right? And the singing thing, listen, that's just me. Some people won't like it. Some people will like it. Some people will be indifferent. Some people will be like, yeah, they're having fun. Who cares? Other people might be like, I wish they didn't sing, but whatever. And also this week, because this is kind of timely, this week at my choir, every week one person gets to stand up in the break and sing a song if they want. And so the choir is about, I don't know, maybe 150 people. I don't know, actually. Anyway, and it was my turn this week, and and I sang Papa from Oliver the musical and got people to join in, and we had a good old knees up. And so I had a little bit of kind of like a vulnerability thing from that. And then I saw the they singing. It's hard to listen because they sing, and I was like, oh. But then I remembered that I'm a fierce fatty, so yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for all those reviews. Thank you for listening in for this year. Apparently I've got like 87% of the listeners this year are new listeners. So hello, if you started watching the show or listening to the show this year. You can always find a video of the show on YouTube if you ever want to watch it, because I record the video just for the, for the couple of hundred people that watch it on YouTube. And also there's transcripts for every single episode. I think we've done it now. We went back and we did it for every single episode, and so that's complete now, that project. So if you ever want to go to the transcript, just go to the show notes, and then you can find the specific show notes for whatever episode it is by going to fiercefatty.com/150 for this episode, or if you forget that, fiercefatty.com/podcast. Quick update on the vacation to Dominican Republic. We have 6 early bird tickets left, and so if you want to get on the early bird train and get a $100 discount, go to the show notes and click on the details about Dominican Republic vacation. If you forget where they are, you can always go to my Instagram, and there's a link in my bio. Basically, we're going for 5 days to the DR. It's a fat positive vacation, accessible for those with limited mobility and disabilities. It's going to be fucking amazing. So anyway, thought I'd give you some fierce fatty news, or not fierce fatty news, but fatty news, or scandal news. A listener or a follower sent me an article. They're in Germany. Hey, Germany. They're in Germany. Did I tell you that I dated a German guy recently this year? He was cool. He was like really forward thinking. And he says, yeah, Germany is pretty forward thinking when it comes to a lot of things. Not so much on the fat stuff. Anyway, so here's a story out of Germany. Tinder ad with Paul Ripke. I think that's how you say his name. Weight Watchers responds to criticism. So this is what happened. There's this famous guy called Paul Ripke. And what Weight Watchers did is they partnered with this guy, Paul. And apparently Paul didn't realize what they were actually doing, allegedly. But what they were doing is they were advertising on Tinder. And so Paul's profile would come up, and the profile would say, quote, "I'm in the mood for a change, and I like to try new recipes. Are you also in the mood for healthy habits? Then let's cook together." And so, it's like he says that he introduces himself as a budding master chef, photographer, and podcaster. All right. And then he says, "I like eating food. Do you want to, let's cook together." Okay. And then those who swipe yes on him would then get the message, "I've been around for a long time and have finally found myself and my center. Are you also longing for inspiration and support on your journey to more balance and a healthy lifestyle? Sign up for Weight Watchers now and get a taste for new habits. Apparently, this only went to fat people. Ripke apologized last Sunday after several social media accounts drew attention to the advert. He says, of course, the advertising was declared as such, and not only fat women were addressed, he explained. Nevertheless, all the advertising that Weight Watchers did was a stupid idea, he said. The only relevant thing is how users felt about it. This is okay, I'm on a German website, by the way, and this is translated with Google Translate, and so I think some of the words might be a little bit off. So if it's not making sense, then and apparently he immediately was like, take this down, and so they did. But imagine that. You're like, oh, hey, Paul. You know, he's like this 40-year-old guy. He looks pretty cute. He's got a little bit of chub on him. He's cute. Like, I don't know about who he is, his personality. He might be a raging right-wing weirdo. And if that's the case, then he's not cute. But, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do some cooking with Paul. And then it's like, hey, fatty, go to Weight Watchers. Oh, Lord. That's fucked up. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. I'll let you know about that. So let's talk about what we're talking about today. And what we're talking about today is other human beings. Oh, it's so hard to communicate. Oh, communication. I feel like, you know, if I could have a superpower, I've got this diary. It's a 5-year diary. And then it asks you a question a day. One of the questions is if you could have, or if you could be an expert at something or have a superpower or whatever. I almost always answer that question. I've done it for 3 years of, I wish I could be the best communicator, because communication is so hard. And when you are, and being a good communicator is such a skill, right? That's such a skill as in it takes time to master. And, yeah. And I think, you know what, with the podcast thing, with the people saying that I'm compassionate, is that's a really big compliment for me, because my communication skills used to be, when I was younger, I was very angry and not compassionate because I was not compassionate towards myself. Yeah, so communication skills, I think, is a really awesome thing to keep trying at. And yeah, I'm always thinking about this, and thinking about folks who are newer in their anti-diet or fat positive journey, and what that looks like for people. And what that looks like for a lot of people is, because most of their lives, if you are new to this, and if you are in the world of now, you know, health at every size, or intuitive eating, or fat positivity, or body positive, whatever, most of your life, theoretically, you have been pro-diet, anti-fat, and those around you have known you as this personality. And so when we make the change to a different ideology, which is liberatory, which is sometimes against the grain for a lot of people, those in your life can have problems with it. And the other thing is, you'll start to realize how anti-fatness and diet culture is everywhere. Oh my God. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, right? And a lot of people say that to me, and they're like, oh my God, Vinny, like, what the hell? I'd rather, let's put these glasses back on where I can't see all this shit, because it's fucking everywhere, and it can be really exhausting. And it's kind of like, well, where do we pick our battles? Are we going to be, you know, 20 times a day being like, hey, by the way, don't say that, that's anti-fat, or, you know, not watching any TV, not consuming any content, any going online, you know, just walking around the world, just, you know, fingers in our ears type of thing. That's impossible, right? But there are times that we do need to deal with other people who are in diet land, or who are, you know, anti-fat. because we've realized it really is an issue for us. And when I talk to people in coaching, and we talk about the kind of barriers to their success of loving themselves, or getting on with intuitive eating, or whatever it is, very often we'll have, oh, my mum or my mother-in-law or my sister or my friend or people at work are on diets, talk shit about fatness. That a lot of the times they don't talk shit about the person's fatness. So the person I'm talking to, they talk shit about fatness in general and their own body. And often the people are not fat, right? And so it's kind of more difficult, because if someone is like, hey, you're fat and I don't like you because you're fat, that's a lot easier to say, okay, that's not going to be so good for my mental health. And it's more clear on what to do, right? And what to do is be like, set a boundary, you remove them from your life, whatever it is that feels good for you. But when there's more nuance, it can be like, what do I do here? And I've asked followers on Instagram to give me your situations, your questions on what to do with certain situations, right? What you're dealing with right now, so I can give specific examples of what to do. But I want to go over first a couple of strategies that I teach, and talk about boundaries in general, right? And so with this, we've got two strategies: boundaries, or remove, reduce, protect, which is what I talk about all the time. How to protect yourself from fat phobia is remove, reduce, protect. So the gold standard is, can you remove fat phobia from your life? So can you get rid of the most triggering aspects of fat phobia? Examples: unfollowing fat phobic folks on social media, end harmful relationships, stop watching that really fat phobic show with only normative bodies, etc. And so remove is like, can we remove fat phobia? Great. Then, perfect. It's removed from your life. That's not always possible, right? And with boundaries, what we're doing with boundaries is trying to remove or reduce, right? Reduce the exposure. Remove their exposure, have a boundary. Don't talk to me about fat being terrible. And if they do, then there's a consequence. And the consequence could be reducing time with them. It could be removing them from your lives temporarily or full time. Okay, so reduce is if you're not able to remove for whatever reason. Say, for example, it's your parents and you are your carers of your parents, and so you can't, you have decided that it's not appropriate for you to remove them from your life because you're their carers. And that's not something you want to do. That's absolutely fine. Or for whatever reason, it doesn't need to be as dramatic as you're their carers, but for whatever reason, there's a power imbalance, whatever, you can reduce, if possible. Can you reduce the amount of time that you're exposed to fat phobia? So an example of this could be spending less time with fat phobic people, only watching 1 hour of that fat phobic show instead of 3. And finally, protect. So if you can't reduce or remove, then you can potentially protect yourself. And what that looks like is, after spending time with fat phobes, engage in self-care, spend time reviewing fat positive resources to feel good, put headphones in, say if you're at work and people are talking about diet stuff, or leave the room during diet talk. So they are 3 ways that we can tackle protecting ourselves from fat phobia. And those things can mean that you're going to have to, communicate with people about this topic. And some of them, maybe not, right? If you're protecting yourself, if people are talking about fat phobia at work, or, how they love going on diets or whatever, you're removing yourself from the situation or putting headphones in, that's protecting yourself. And I want to kind of note here is that whatever is accessible to you is a-okay, right? I don't want folks feeling like, I wish I knew what to say, or I wish I had the perfect zinger to stop people in their tracks. You know, that's kind of expecting maybe at this stage, you know, it's unrealistic, and it's probably not helpful for you to expect that you're able to go into battle when you're kind of finding your feet in this area. Say if you're newer to this, maybe you're finding your feet, and even if you've been doing this stuff longer, you might also not be used to communicating your feelings and thoughts. And also, even if you are used to, this is like potentially high stakes business, right? You know, you're sat around the lunch table with your colleagues and they're like, oh my God, I love cucumbers up the bum. And if you say, hey, by the way, that's not cool, you know, what are the consequences? You could lose relationships. You could lose your job. You could be ostracized. You could, you know, and so there's many reasons why this stuff is difficult. And if you choose you want to do something or say something, then that's great. And if you want to and stumble in the moment, that's normal, you know, because when we are confronted with this stuff, our bodies are probably having a reaction, and a reaction could be that your heart is beating faster. Perhaps you're breathing quicker because your heart is beating faster, and your body is like, we are in danger. And your brain is not thinking, right, okay, let's go into the back catalogue of all of the research I know about fatness and health at every size and intuitive in eating, and let's come up with a real perfectly well-formed sentence. Your brain is like, we're in danger, get out of here, just, you know. So you're not in the best stead, is what I'm saying. But saying all that, it's a practice, right? It's a practice. And I want to give you some ideas. So with boundaries, not everyone can set boundaries, nor is it always appropriate. You know, we're talking about the power imbalance. If you're not safe for whatever reason, it might not be appropriate for you. There could be, you know, that power imbalance. Say it's your boss. Say if you're in a relationship where that person has more power. Say they are the one who earns money, and by disagreeing with them, you know that they're volatile, and so it's not maybe appropriate in that circumstance. And there's lots of others too. And the other thing is, people have known you potentially for years as someone who loves a little bit of diet talk. And so it's going to take time for people to get used to you having new rules and guidelines in your life. Because hopefully this is going to be a lifelong journey, right? And maybe in the past you've gone on diets and it's been a kind of... you do it and you're excited, and then the diet fails, and then you're less excited, and then maybe there's a new diet and you're excited and it fails, and so maybe people are used to you having kind of new things that you're excited about, and maybe they're not taking it seriously that this new thing that you're excited about is something that's going to be for the rest of your life. And so then maybe they're not taking your boundaries as seriously because of that. But we need to help folks understand that no, we are serious about this, and it's forever. And the way that we do that is with our words and our actions. So my favorite way to get people to stop talking about things that diets or anti-fatness in front of me, my favorite piece of advice is, hey, friend, family member, person I love, person I care about, I don't know if you noticed, but I've actually started learning about intuitive eating, anti-fatness, whatever. And I've recognized that when people talk about diets, anti-fatness, whatever, that it can be a trigger for me. And so I'm wondering if I can have your help with something. Sometimes, starting with, I'm wondering if I can have your help with something. People who love us are like, yes, I'd love to help you with something. Can you avoid talking about XYZ? Or can you not talk about XYZ while I'm around? Now, that's one way that we can do it, making it about ourselves. And the reason why I like this is because when we're asking someone to change behavior, it can be very difficult for them because they might hear, you're a bad person, you've hurt me, you've ruined my life, you're at fault, you're responsible for the way that I feel about myself, right? And then that can be difficult for them to listen and hear and understand what's going on, which is, a them problem. But for me, when I'm framing it about me and the fact that I want to achieve this goal and I'm wondering if they can help me achieve this goal, it's not about how they have fucked up. It's about what I've noticed in me and what makes it difficult for me to love and accept myself. Now, people might be like, fuck you, la la la. Or you might find that's disempowering for you to say, hey, I'd like you to help me with something. And that's okay too. You can say something else, right? And so whatever words you use to say to that person, can you stop talking about this thing? And they say, yes. They say, I'll try. They'll say, no. That is great information for you. Whatever they say is information on what you are going to do next. If they say no, okay, well, we know where we stand. And, for me, it would be, unfortunately, I can't continue this relationship with you, or unfortunately, I can't see you as much, or unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut you off if you do start talking about it, or whatever, depending on what type of relationship you have. If they say, I'll try, but it'll be so hard, then you can have a conversation of, okay, well, what would be helpful for when you do slip up for me to say? And so you've already got that kind of pre-agreed of, that you're going to say, oh, don't forget, we talked about this or whatever. And if they say yes, great. I might also have that conversation too, because if they say yes, they're probably good. They're a human being. They're probably going to forget, right? And then when they do then forget and say something, which is a likely thing to happen, you can decide kind of like what amount of tolerance do you want to give. We don't want to be the thing is here, we need to have a level of standing our ground, right? And that is where boundaries fall apart, is that there is no standing of ground when someone says it. It'd be like, so this is what happens, is someone says, yeah, I've set boundaries. I've told my mum not to talk about my body, but she keeps doing it. And then I say, okay, so what do you do when she does keep doing it? Nothing. And then I'm like, okay. And it's inappropriate that your mum still talks about your body, but also this is kind of like a new education thing for your mum. Your mum's known you as this person and known how to talk to you for X amount of years. And so we need to then be reinforcing our new boundary by saying, hey, remember I said about this? Or by doing whatever. It could be that you're going to leave the room. It could be that you're going to end the conversation. It could be that you're going to decide not to talk to them for an X amount of weeks. It could be that you end the relationship. Whatever it is that feels good for you, But if we're not following it up with something, then that is where we're going to fail, right? Because you're serious about this, right? You are serious about this. This is not acceptable. And we have to keep helping people understand that it is not acceptable by how we react when they mess up, which they probably will because they are a human being. So in my life, I've set boundaries, and it was very difficult for me because I was/am probably still a massive people pleaser, and terrified to say anything, to state my needs, because I thought people would just flip a table and be like, fuck you, you're dead to me, even if it was like, hey, can you take your shoes off at the door? They'd be like, what? Take my shoes off, that would just be way too high stakes. And so, I couldn't go in with, hey, here's these big, huge boundaries with big, important people in my life. I had to go in with, the easier things. Like, hey, do you think that you could take your shoes off? Whatever it is. And you know what? It made me a better friend, because instead of being, seething that my friend is in my house wearing shoes and being like, I'm so mad about it, it could just be nipped in the bud, and it gives them access to having a better relationship with me, because I'm not secretly, mad at them for something that could be corrected so easily. But it was still hard, right? Because of what I've learned about, about this stuff growing up. We didn't have boundaries. So in my life, almost everyone has had a good reaction when I set boundaries. One of my siblings refused to honor a boundary, a very kind of simple boundary. And unfortunately, I had to end a relationship with her. And because we're at the same state, it's been, I guess, a number of years now, maybe like 3 years or something, that I haven't had a relationship with her. And that feels really good for me, right? That's like a long time coming of like many years of therapy to get to that point, right? And set boundaries with her. And then when she just was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And no, fuck you, basically. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a great information for me about the type of person she is and what type of relationship she wants. She wants a relationship which doesn't have boundaries or not being able to respect or try and understand me. And so, that means that I can't have a relationship with her. And my life, because of that, has improved, not having a relationship. And I'm able to offer her in my brain more compassion for understanding where she might be at, versus before I was just constantly angry with her. So let's move to, the reason why I'm telling you those stories is probably most people are going to have either a neutral or a good reaction, right? Depending how the way you say it. If you're like, listen up here, motherfuckers, you're all pieces of shit and have ruined my life and I hate you, and you better not say this or I'm going to punch you in the face or whatever, then, maybe they might have a good reaction. And it's fine if you feel like that, that's absolutely to be, understandable, because sometimes these people have really fucked with our lives and are the cause of these issues that we're dealing with. And you don't have to do anything, be kind to people who have been unkind to you. But, normally speaking, if we're having conversations which are nuanced and, trying to be kind and respectful to each other, then these types of conversations tend to go okay or good, and sometimes they might not, and that's okay too. That doesn't mean what you're asking is this awful, terrible thing and that you're unreasonable. That we can't draw that conclusion from someone not respecting our boundaries. So here's a question from a follower on Instagram who says, my partner's mum always mocks his weight and blames me for making him fat with my cooking. He has a history of restricting and fainting due to malnutrition, and I encourage intuitive eating. His mother is fat herself, but says it's only acceptable to be fat when you're 50 plus. I have told her several times I don't accept her speaking about her son in a demeaning way, but she keeps telling him to lose weight because, quote, he looked so much better. I wonder what to say to someone that clearly does not respect my wishes, not to fat shame, and I find it odd why it's common for older fat people to shame on younger fat people. Okay, so, when I read that, I just felt really like this is straight up bullying and is cruel and is deeply harmful. From the first sentence, blames me for making him fat with my cooking. I mean, that's so sexist, right? So you're making him fat with your cooking like he is this helpless baby boy and you're his mother responsible for his care. and so you're to blame for him having a body, you know? It's so weird. It's just fucking the patriarchy right there. And then the other thing is that he's fainted due to malnutrition. Could your partner be anorexic? Last episode we did on atypical anorexia in fat folks. And that, you know, if someone is not eating enough that they faint, that is, I mean, it's could be a sign, right? So I'm saying mother-in-law. You didn't say mother-in-law. I'm just going to say mother-in-law to shorten it. Your mother-in-law could be encouraging an eating disorder. And I'm curious too, what does your partner do or say when the mother-in-law says these things? Like, because it sounds like you're standing up for him, but we don't have the information of what he's saying, whether he's saying, yeah, mum, cut it out, or if he's saying nothing, and then when you get home he's like, I can't believe my mum said that, or if he's saying, yeah, well, you know how my mum's like, just leave her be, and you know, you're the one kind of taking on this burden. So I'm curious about that, because you know, it's about him, right? And so would it be appropriate for you both to come up with consequences? Because I wonder, you know, like you said, I've told her several times, but she keeps doing it. And so she keeps doing it because there's no consequence, right? Like, if she wasn't in your life, she couldn't not do it. You know, and I'm not saying that's it, end the relationship, and you know, and again, we need to have a bit of nuance when we're thinking about this. You could be living with them, with you know, the mum. You could be dependent on her for cheaper rent or something, or we don't know the situation exactly, and so would it be appropriate to have consequences where it's like, we're not going to see you, we're not going to talk to you, or whatever? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I think every time that she's doing it, I think there has to be, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. Coming up with some type of word track that you just keep saying. And it could be that you're saying, you know, this is not acceptable. Do not comment on his weight. You are engaging in bullying and in bigotry right now. Whatever it is, it could be that you literally get up from the table and say, I'm sorry, we're not able to be here while you're talking about, while you're shaming son, and walking away. It could be that you I saw this post where someone says that whenever someone talks about something, well, I don't know if it was weight, but they just come up with a random fact about otters, and they said, did you know that otters hold hands when they sleep? You know, and so that she learns that it's not going to gain her anything by to keep talking about his weight, because it could be that right now what she's thinking is, well, if I keep going, they're going to really understand that this is something that's important for me. If I keep shaming him, he might become thin. You know, there's that's you know, that she's doing it for a reason, some benefit to her, and that benefit could be that the son, she perceives the son as in having a better life if he is thinner, you know. And you know, your question of like, why is it that older fat people shame younger fat people? And I feel like sometimes older fat people can be really deep in fat phobia. They've been alive longer. They have been around during the peak of diet culture and you know, all sorts of stuff. Depending on their age, they might have been around where you know, things like fen, diet pills, and all sorts of stuff. And now we're lucky enough to in the last 10 years be more exposed to that. And sometimes, not all older people, but sometimes some older people are not exposed to those messages, and it just seems so, quote, everyone knows that being fat is bad. They're not exposed to the other idea of, that's not true. And so, because sometimes older folks can be deep in fat phobia, they know, they've experienced the world that is so deeply anti-fat, and the conclusion in their mind is not let's rally against fat phobia, it's let's not be fat. And so in their mind it might be okay to fat shame, and not even might be, in this example it is okay for her in her mind to fat shame, because it might get her the result that she's hoping for, which is the chance that her son will become thin, and therefore in her mind happier, and therefore safe from fat phobia. And so there's kind of some, A plus B equals 25, so it's kind of like A plus B, that makes sense, but we're targeting the wrong thing. So she's targeting the wrong thing, which is, instead, we should be tackling bigotry and anti-fat bias. She's saying we should target fatness and fat people, and probably feels like she's doing a really good thing, because being fat in this world is difficult, But, I mean, shit, there's plenty of fat older people and thin older people who would recoil at this story and say, well, that's obviously really fucked up. That's obviously going to drive a wedge in the relationship between you and the son, and obviously is not going to be successful. So I really don't like this kind of letting people who are older off the hook. Because, I mean, it really feels like we're infantilizing older people and being like, well, they don't know any better. Why not? They have a brain. They are able to be compassionate, hello. And just because it was, different when they were young, doesn't matter. So other older folks have been able to get it, Like my mum was deep in that stuff, right? She's 71 now. And if you talk to her, she's so radical. She's got things that she needs to work on, yeah, like as we all do, but there's no way I would have thought that she would say the things that she does now, It's really beautiful to see. And so even if someone is currently being a bigot, there is hope, but we cannot accept that. And we cannot accept any bigotry. And that is fat phobia, that is racism, that is sexism, that is all of those things. It is not appropriate to just kind of be like, they're older. And, this person is not saying that. I'm just saying in general. It's just not acceptable. And fat phobia is bigotry. It is anti-black racism. It is not acceptable. So for this one, I really want to know what consequences we have in place, what is happening, and what is your partner doing? Like, is he involved in this process? Because that could be difficult if he's not, because you're, one person standing up when the relationship dynamic is between, the son and the mum, and that could cause there to be barriers, right? And it could mean that your boyfriend, your partner, says, I don't mind, and I'm not going to say anything to mum. And it could mean that you decide, well, I'm not going to hang out with your mum anymore, because it is not appropriate for me to be hearing those things. And I really wish that, you could stand up to her or whatever. There's so many different scenarios that could be going on here, but really we need to be laying down those consequences, whatever they are. Whether it's you're saying something, you're changing the subject, you're getting up and walking away, you're spending less time with her, start There's a reel that me and Summer made where it's like how to respond to fat phobes, and it's a funny thing. Like, and one of them was I bent over and started, making my bum cheeks move and being like, nah, 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 just stupid. Like, you're not going to do that, but you could do that. Or just say stop or whatever. You can come up with many different things that you can say, and also understanding there might be some situation here where doing those things might not be appropriate because there might be some power imbalance. So yeah. Okay, now let's move to our next one, which is my best friend is straight-sized, and in the past she and I have engaged in very disordered conversations around food and weight loss. I have recently been trying to reframe my thoughts around my plus-size body and focus on my health, physical and mental, rather than my weight. My friend, however, continues to make comments like, "I feel so fat and disgusting today." I finally told her how these comments make me, a person who is objectively much larger than her, feel terrible. And she has accused me of gaslighting her and making it so she can't say anything about her own feelings for fear of upsetting me. I want her to be able to express herself to me, and I'm trying to find a middle ground. Help. So first off, this is kind of like what we've been talking about. In the past, you have engaged in disordered conversations, right? And so this is kind of like growing pains, and you say you've recently been trying to, and so this is, it's a recent thing. And so this is kind of growing pains. And so we're going to have to help her and, understand for you as well, what is okay and what is not okay. And I would love to pick your friend's brain about, her saying that you are gaslighting her. And when I read that, I was like, okay, what I suspect is happening for her, obviously I don't know, I'm not talking to her. What I suspect is she's hearing something that you're not saying. I suspect she's hearing something like, "Hey friend, you can never feel bad about your body because my body is bigger," which invalidates her feelings. And I'm sure that's not what you said. But, us humans are so good at making it about ourselves, right? Making us to blame, because then if we are the fault and we are bad, then we can fix it, right? And so, especially if you're bringing it and say, "Hey, when you say this makes me feel bad," she's probably going to get defensive and kind of maybe misunderstand what you're saying. And what we're trying to say here is that talking about fat as a negative is difficult to hear, especially from people who are smaller, as it contributes to the idea that your body is particularly bad because it's bigger. Even though your friend isn't saying that, she's saying it about her, she still is framing fatness as a negative. It might be appropriate for your friend to say, "I'm really struggling with my body image today." And I'm sure that sounds a lot better, right? If your friend said, "Hey, I'm really struggling with my body image today," but she's not. She's saying, "I feel fat and disgusting. Therefore, fat is disgusting." And saying that as someone who is living in a privileged body. And the reason why that's inappropriate, aside from aligning fat with disgusting, is that it erases your experience of living in a bigger body and the very real stigmatization and marginalization that you experience because of your body size, right? Everyone can have the potential for having terrible body image, for hating themselves no matter their size. But the difference is it's only people who have marginalized bodies, and in this example, a fat body, that experiences systemic oppression when they go out into the world. So a straight-sized person is not going to have to also deal with feeling shit, so because anyone can feel shit about their body, but also then not be able to buy clothes, you know, but also then have the doctor say, yeah, you are too fat, you need to lose weight, but also then not be able to find a date because only 25% of cis-het men would date a fat cis-het woman. So it's like this added layer. And we're not talking about like, oh, straight-sized people don't have it bad. Straight-sized people can struggle so much with body image, it could be deadly for them. And I think maybe when your friend said, I feel like you're gaslighting me, that could be maybe what she's feeling of, you don't understand how hard this is for me. And we want to understand that it is, body image stuff is devastating. And we can be less black and white with our thinking about it. We can think, okay, well then how does it affect others if I am talking negatively about their marginalized identity? You know? Because I feel like your friend would be able to understand that difference between you saying that, her saying that fat is bad, and you saying, hey, don't say that fat is bad. So I think if we were to have the conversation with her about power and privilege and fat politics, that could be helpful. And acknowledging that struggling with body image issues is a very real battle for many, many people and can be very painful. But the difference is that fat people also have to deal with the very real lived reality, being in a bigger body in a society that villainizes fatness. So again, you can make it about you and not about her. Not that she's, you know, you can say, hey, I want your help. And the thing is, she needs to get used to this new language that you are speaking. She needs to get used to the idea that anti-fatness is never acceptable. I mean, if I was friends with her and she said, I feel so fat and disgusting, and I was friends with her and saying I didn't do this job, immediately I'd be like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? What do you mean you feel so fat and disgusting? Hello, I'm a fat person. What does that mean about what you think about my body? And then she's, oh no, I think you look beautiful. But you know that you know, if they suddenly got my body, they'd be like, oh, I'm so fat, you know. So, and it is about them, right? It is about them, you know, and then how they feel. But really, they're throwing you under the bus in the process of trying to express themselves. So I would, if that happened to me, I'd say, hey, you know what? When you say you feel fat, using fat as a feeling word is not appropriate, because you are insinuating that fatness is bad and that fatness is disgusting. And that is not appropriate, because we're out here trying to be, you know, we don't want to be anti-fat anymore. That's like really 2013. So I'd love to hear about how you're struggling with body image issues, or you can say, you know what, I don't want to hear about you struggling with body image issues, because I'm not in that place right now where I can hear it, because you live in a smaller body. It can be very difficult for a fat person to hear a straight-sized person say that they think they're unattractive when society says that they are attractive, when you are experiencing so much shit because of the body that you're living in. And so some fat people do say to their straight-sized friends, I love you, but unfortunately, because of where I am at with my body image journey, and because I don't have the spoons, aka the mental energy, I cannot talk to you about body image. I support you. I really wish that you the very best on your journey, but that's just one thing that I find very difficult to talk about because of the privilege imbalance in this relationship. The privilege, the body size privilege, and that is okay too. I mean, it is obnoxious to be in a thin body complaining about how fat you are to a fat person. I mean, it's pretty cringy, right? But it's so normal. We've probably all done it. We probably still do it today, you know? Like, it's so normal, but it shouldn't be. And by the way, you know, I was saying, hey, whoa, you know, if someone said that to me, obviously I'm a fat activist. Like, I'm so used to talking about this stuff and I have it on the tip of my tongue, right? I don't expect anyone else to be doing that. But knowing that from my perspective, it's not okay at all. Not even close to okay. Yeah. So in response to that one, summarizing that is, I think maybe clarifying what you mean, clarifying that, you know, about anti-fatness and why saying she feels fat is not appropriate, and also saying that you deeply empathize with her in regards to her body image issues, and her body image issues are very real no matter what her size is, and it's very important that she is able to overcome that stuff if she wants to, you know, and that she's important, her feelings are important, but also her feelings are important, but she can't throw you under the bus in trying to express them. Okay, so I had a little question box for the kind of like short little questions here. Someone just sent in mother-in-law. That was it. just mother-in-law. And I was like, yeah. And the thing is, well, with mother-in-law, it's difficult because it's not your mum, right? Your mum, it's kind of like there is theoretically unconditional love, but with your mother-in-law the relationship is difficult, right? She can tell you to fuck off. I mean, your mum could anyway, but the relationship is difficult and you kind of have to be polite, and depending on your culture, where you're from, there could be that really kind of, you know, respecting your elders to the point where the elders can be deeply disrespectful to you and abusive to you, but you can't say anything because it's a culture. So if you are dealing with a mother-in-law that is happily to be displaying body bigotry, then I am so sorry that you're having to deal with that. Okay, someone else says here, whenever I eat something, quote, healthy, people accuse me of dieting. I'm anti-diet and hate it. Yeah, so that's fucked up. Eye roll. And I mean, people can't get away with eating anything now without someone having some type of opinion that they want to express, right? If a fat person eats a salad, oh, really? But you don't eat salads often, or but you're doing that just for a performance, or oh, are you trying to lose weight? Good for you for eating a salad like you've never eaten a salad before. Or if you eat something that is quote unquote unhealthy, then oh, surprise, no matter you're fat, or even if you're straight sized and you're eating something quote unquote unhealthy, then oh, you're being naughty. You know, just keep your opinions about what someone is eating to yourself, unless you want to be like, oh, that looks delicious, can I try some? You know, you wouldn't be doing that to a random stranger. I don't know, maybe you would. But for me, if someone said to me, oh, are you dieting? I'd just be like, no. And I'd explain why. I'm anti-diet. And actually it's really inappropriate that you would ask me that and talk about food, depending on your relationship with that person. I mean, fuck. If I was there eating a salad and someone says, oh, are you dieting? I might, grab a fistful of salad and just be like, no, I'm not dieting. So that might be just, that might be an opportunity, depending on your relationship with that person, for a little bit of education about how it's inappropriate to talk about anyone's food and presuming that they're dieting. Why are you presuming that person is dieting? Okay, someone says, co-workers, mine are brutal. They never say anything about me, but constant diet talk, it's rough. Yeah, so that's the thing, is it's a lot harder when they're not saying something about you directly, but they kind of are, right? So with co-workers, that's another thing, is because you can't just go in there and just do some roundhouse kicks and just be like, shut up, Sharon. You might get fired. And so you could approach this in a few different ways. It could be that you send an email to HR and say, hey, can we institute a no diet talk policy because blah, blah, blah. HR might be like, why would you do that? Being fat is bad. You know, you might not have HR. It could be that you just have a conversation with your work colleagues and say, hey, can we not with a diet talk? You could do any of the things that we spoke about earlier about changing the subject. You could, question them. If people were talking about diets, I might be curious about like why do you want to be thin? Like, why do you want to lose weight? Why? But why? Oh, we want to be thin. We want to be. It's not healthy to be fat, is it? Like, where did you get that idea from? Did you know? And so eventually they'd know that, why would we talk about that in front of Vinny? She's such a party pooper. They're such a party pooper. And it could be that you explain to them, hey, I've had a history of disordered eating, and so when people talk about diets, it's really bad for my mental health. It could be that you just get up from the table anytime someone talks about dieting. It could be that you put in your headphones and just press the play button when they start talking about dieting. But another thing could be that you ask a manager or HR to bring in a professional like me to teach about anti-diet, pro-fatness, and that's something that I do, right? That's a part of what my business is going into organizations and teaching about fatphobia, and I talk about diet talk at the lunchtime, and it feels so fucking satisfying to be saying, hey, this is not okay, and for people to be like, oh shit, well, I do that all the time. It feels so good to be protecting folks by talking about that stuff. Someone else here, I asked the question, does anyone have any tips? Someone said that they made their own presentation on fatphobia and presented it to the organization, and now they are the lead mental health. Now they're their mental health team lead in my organization, is what they said. So it could be that they, there's no budget to bring someone like me in, but you are going to do it yourself. And then you explain, like, why is this harmful? What is all this about? My father-in-law comments on my 4-year-old's body and food choices every time we're there. Yeah, so that is boundaries. And also, with the remove, reduce, protect, it could be that, father-in-law said that you're never going to see them again. You've decided that, but also you want to talk to your child about what happened. Okay. So you will not be able to protect children from being exposed to anti-fat bias, but what you can do is help them understand how it's not okay, by talking to them about it, how it made them feel, and all that type of stuff. Someone asks, Mum thinks fat is ugly and doesn't want to be fat. She says it's because she always liked beauty. How do I respect her body autonomy without passively supporting her fat phobia? Yeah. So your mum has an opinion which is based on a belief, and beliefs are not facts. It's not a fact that fat is ugly. It's an opinion, okay? So I might say to Mum, hey, did you know that there are many people who think that being fat is absolutely beautiful, and I happen to be one of them. Sometimes when you talk about how you don't want to be fat, it hurts me in these ways. It makes me worried that you're not going to love me if I'm fat. It makes me anxious that you're judging my body. I mean, I don't know if your mum's fat or not, but I would probably have that conversation about how it affects you, and if she wants to continue to diet or be thin or hate being fat, I don't know what her body size is, that's fine. She can do that, but what she can't do is harm you in the process. Even if you have a small body, this stuff is harmful, right? It's this indoctrination of anti-fatness, this slow drip that is, we might say, is it a big deal? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you might be like, whatever. But sometimes it is. And for those who are struggling with body image stuff, almost always they have a parent or a sibling or friends who are big into anti-fatness that really influences them. And I'm like, okay, well, that is a great opportunity to sort that out, because it's probably going to really help you. So I would, in that situation, talk to mum and say, hey, I understand that you think that that's the fact. It's not actually a fact, and this is how it's negatively affecting me. Is there anything I can do to support you in accepting your body the way it is? And if she wants to continue to do whatever in regards to her body, that's her choice, right? Okay, final one. Mother-in-law justifies herself whenever she eats something she thinks she shouldn't be eating. Well, I never eat junk food like this usually, so I guess one time is okay, when literally no one commented. So I might go with the, hey, mother-in-law, I'm wondering if you can help me with something. I'm trying to unlearn harmful beliefs around food, and so talking about junk food, quote unquote, I've noticed is not great for my mental health. I'm wondering if you can avoid talking about that. It could be that when mother-in-law says junk food, talking about, like, it sounds like you struggle with allowing yourself to have certain foods. Are you okay? Can we help you with that? Are you, or you could come back with some type of sassy thing of, like, when she's like, oh, I'm being so bad. You're like, you didn't just, murder a guinea pig. You're not actually doing anything bad. You're just eating food like a human. So when that stuff happens around me, I generally ask questions. And, who knows how it goes, but, if I ask questions, they know that I'm going to ask questions again next time that they talk about it. And so then they're less likely to do it. And, with other people in my life, I've already set boundaries. And so it's not often I get these experiences. It's only when I'm meeting new people. So yeah, what do you think? How you feeling? I hope you feel like you can, I don't know, set boundaries if it's appropriate. And also, I want you to forgive yourself if you don't say something in the moment, and then afterwards you're like, shit, I could have just really, like, said this thing and that would have changed everything, and they would never do it again, and I didn't. I just sat there and smiled and nodded. This stuff is fucking hard. I've been doing this for years, all right? So I want you to, know that this is a process. This is lifelong, right? And also, it's not appropriate that you're exposed to this stuff, especially from people who you see a lot, who you're close to, who you love and who love you. It's really, really upsetting and can be very impactful to your mental health. You deserve to have safety in your relationships with whoever, and it sucks that we're the one having to do this fucking work. It is not fair. It is not fair that we are the ones having to fucking work so hard to be treated fairly. Ugh, gets on my fucking tits. Ugh. All right, well, I'm going to leave it there for you today. Again, if you want to go to Dominican Republic with me, go check out the link in the show notes, or go to the link in my bio on Instagram, fierce.fatty. And we'll see you, I guess, actually, I'll probably see you in the new year now, because me and my team are taking off 2 weeks the end of the year. Let's see, we're going to take off the week of the 19th and the week of the 26th, so yeah, so probably there's not going to be another podcast until beginning of January. So this is good timing, because then if people are doing stuff for the holidays, then be prepared. And remember that remove, reduce, protect. There's a link in the show notes where you can find an image for that, so you can refer to that. And yeah, just give yourself a lot of love and hugs around this stuff, and have a wonderful rest of your day or night or afternoon or whatever. Okay, bye.